Hi, this is Geert-Jan from the NetBeans team. In this screencast I'm going to show how to create a NetBeans platform-based application to analyze data. The data in this case comes from different files on disk, and these files are probably output from some kind of device like a camera or a handheld something or other. You've imported these files, this data from some external source, and now you want to be able to analyze the data that you've extracted. And the data looks like this, and it's kind of meaningless in these text files. You want to display them inside of a larger GUI, analyze them, and compare them, and make reports and things like that. There are in fact many NetBeans platform applications that do things like that. If you go to the showcase, a very long list of applications that you see here. What we're doing here is kind of in the domain of scientific modelers and analyzers. If you look here, you'll see different kinds of applications that do similar things to what we're trying to achieve here. Here, for example, this Power Agent application. This is an application attached to an exercise bicycle, extracting information from that and displaying that information in graphs. As you can see here. You can see here multiple different windows, some graph displaying some output, some visualization of the data, another window displaying this same data numerically. Here a list of users of different bicycles, I guess. If we look, here's another example, Pursuit. So this is competition timing, an application used for tracking the results of races, athletic races, and so on. You can have a look here and you'll see many applications that do exactly what we're trying to achieve. In fact, all of these applications are like that, analyzing some kind of data, whether they are teeth or the human body or whatever. In this particular case, what we are going to be using as our data source are these text files. The first thing we need to have is a basic application skeleton with a menu bar and a toolbar, a basic architecture, some windows to get started. Once we have that, the next thing we'll need is a way for that application that we have then created to recognize these different files. You can see these all have, they should all have the same file extension, XRK. It's just a random set of characters are selected to make these files unique. So the application that we'll create will understand what XRK files mean and what to do with them, and we'll display them inside the application. So let's get started. We'll call it XRK Analyzer, whatever XRK stands for. So create a new NetBeans platform application, call it XRK Analyzer, and click Finish. And then the new NetBeans platform application is created. This particular application is Ant-based. It could also be based on Maven, for which there is also a template in NetBeans IDE which will create the starting point. What we have here is the starting point, a build script containing targets for example, running the application, for building the application, also for creating installers. So if you right-click on the application, you can go to Properties, and you can see that you can create an installer for the application. This is the name that is used in the executable, so the icon on your desktop that will be clicked or will have XRK Analyzer as its name. Here are the list of libraries that are included by default at the start when we begin creating the application. So these are different jars, each available as modules in the application. So there's a window system already. There is a lot of different modules. Progress bar is included, printing support, output window, menu bar. And you can see this because we run the application. And it starts up and we'll see a splash screen, and you can change the splash screen as well. So here we can see the splash screen can be changed, the icons can be changed, the window system can be tweaked, the strings in the application can be tweaked as well. So what you see here is our application. So the question is, where do these modules come from? You can see this in NetBeans Platform Config, that the modules that we are using in the application come from the platform underneath this development of NetBeans IDE, this development IDE. Its own modules in its platform folder are used as the basis of this application. What you can do is, at the end of the application, right click on it and say package as zip distribution, and you will have a complete application including the executable. So I right click on it, I choose package as zip distribution, and now we have a dist folder which is being populated containing a zip file, and in here, among other things, we have the Windows executable. So this is the complete application that you're ready to give to your end users. Or you could create an installer, or you could create a Mac OS X distribution. So let's run the application again. And what we have right now is all of this. It already has a menu bar and a toolbar with some menus. It has an options window that we could do something with. We could add additional options window tabs in here to customize the application. We could remove the ones that are here. So here are the keyboard shortcuts for the application. We could add another tab in here. We could remove the tabs. We have an about box which we can change. We can customize all of this content. We have different windows, an output window, a properties window that we can use, exit menu item. Several menu items are disabled, and we can enable them depending on the context that we are working in. So if something is ready to be saved, then we want to enable the save menu item, for example, and not before. So we have a basic starting point. The first thing that would be useful to have is a kind of a file browser, so we can browse on disk in our application. That's easy to achieve because the NetBeans platform has its own file browser. So we scroll down in this list. You can see here favorites. Now what is favorites? Favorites is a module in the NetBeans platform that provides this window that you see in NetBeans IDE. So by including that favorites module in the application, so again what I did was I went to properties, I went to platform, and I found in here favorites. By selecting that and right clicking and choosing clean and build, which means when you do that you remove the build folder. So we'll look at this again in a moment. I run the application, I start it up now, and here we see the application back in its default position. So I can open the output window, open the properties window again, and now there's also the favorites window. So the favorites window I can now use to go to my data folder and find my files. Right, here are the files. So the next step is we want to let our application XRK Analyzer understand that these files are different to these files. So to make the application understand that these files are unique and special, and they have their own icon and they have their own set of actions, for example an action to visualize the underlying data, to display it, and maybe we will add some additional properties to the properties window for these different files that we have, or maybe we want to let the user expand these files and show the lines within it as children of the file. You can see this in NetBeans IDE. You can expand this. So this is one way we could start working with this file. Each of the lines in the file maybe we would like to see as children of this file. The important point here is that you see this tree structure, and the items in the tree structure in NetBeans platform terminology are called nodes. So this is a node, that's a node, that's a node, that's a node, that's a node, and these are also nodes. For more on nodes, which is a very important topic, I advise you go to the documentation, and there you will see one of the first links, NetBeans Developer FAQ. And this is really important documentation. If you haven't read this yet, you are not leveraging all the resources available. Here you can see what is a node. It's a whole topic on nodes. So these are presentation objects. They have actions, properties, and display names. You can see here, here's a node, and here are its actions, and here are its properties, its display name, its icon, and a node can have children. So we could create child nodes of this node, and each child node would be a row in this file. So this would be one node, this would be one node, this would be another node, this would be another node, and this would be another node for each of these. That would be one way of visualizing our data. Another way would be whenever we select a different file, that not only is one text file displayed, but also additional windows displaying some special data about some visualization of this file. And you can see an example of this. And you can see an example of this in NetBeans IDE, where you have this source tab and a history tab for all the different files. And so right now we only have one tab, so we could have multiple different tabs. We could also have another window, completely different window, detached from the editor document. So maybe a window over here displaying some data when this particular file was selected about this file, in the same way as is the case over here for the properties window. And we could have another window down here in this output space down here. So when we select a different window, then some other information is displayed in that window. So we can begin doing this, but the starting point for all of that is that we first of all recognize our XRK files, which right now is not the case. So that's the very first thing that we're going to do. I'll close the application, and we will create a new module. Everything we do is inside modules, called XRK file support. Click finish. So we imagine that we have a site, xrk.org, because what we are trying to do here is every module in the application should have its own unique name, and we're creating a new module now, inside of which this specific feature will be put, the feature of recognizing files. So we will say this is org.xrk.file support, and we will have other modules later, org.xrk, visual analyzer, org.xrk, text analyzer, different kinds of analyzers, all in different modules, enabling the user to select which ones they want, or enabling you to provide different modules with different features to different users. So we click finish, and we have our first module. We look inside the module, and we see we have here a manifest file. This is what makes this set of folders and files a module. The fact that there is a manifest file with these keys OpenIDE module. This makes it a NetBeans module. Right now we have one module that we have created ourselves. You can see the relationship. So first of all, we have the sources here, and secondly, we can see the relationship between this module and this application. So right now the application has one module that we created, plus it also has all the modules that the template provided when we started the application. So these modules are also in the application, plus the module that we have now created. Okay, so let's now use a template in NetBeans IDE, file type. This file type template is discussed in the tutorials page. If we can get back there, there is a file type integration tutorial. So what I'm going to be doing now is actually all described in here already. So I choose file type, I click next, and I say XRK, so what are we doing here? we are creating a MIME type, which is a standard non-NetBeans platform specific thing that you do. If you're creating any kind of application and you want to distinguish between different kinds of files, you will create a different MIME type for those different kinds of files. And there are conventions for that, and you can look up MIME types on Google or whatever, because this is not NetBeans platform specific. The typical approach is for the MIME type to have text before slash, if it's a text-based MIME type, followed by X, followed by hyphen XRK, as we have done here. So for that particular MIME type, that identifier for a specific file, we're going to say this applies to all files that have an extension XRK or XRK uppercase or XRK. So all these three different extensions are valid. And if a file is that extension, then it will be mapped to this identifier. We go to the next page and we say XRK is our class name prefix. So what's going to happen now is that we are going to have a data object created, which is a class in the NetBeans platform for parsing files. And once we have parsed a file inside this data object, we can pass the results of that parsing up into the node class for displaying that parsing. So you can think about this as an MVC structure. The lowest level is a file. The controller level is the data object that processes the model, the file, and the node is the presentation logic. So you can think of this as a MVC structure. The lowest level, the model, is the file itself. The next level is the NetBeans platform data object for parsing the model. And the highest level is the node, which is the display level. So all of these guys here are nodes. There will be a template for creating new XRK files in the application. And you can see here that a visual element, so this is a second tab, a visual tab in the editor will be created for displaying something about our file. So I will say XRK, that's a class name prefix. And we need some icons so we can actually see that there is a difference between different kinds of files. I'm not sure where I have a file. Here's a icon. Okay, so all XRK files will have this particular icon, and it looks like this, like that. So rainbow icon will identify our files. I click finish. And all of the files that are described here are now being created. So let's take a look at what's been created. So first of all, we have this data object. The data object has a lot of annotations at the top of the class. You see here, this is a NetBeans platform class that extends multi-data objects. So you can look this up in the Java doc. This is the class for parsing the underlying file. It has a list of annotations. Now these annotations are references to the actions that will be available when you right click, like I'm doing now, on our XRK file. When you right click on the file, there will be an open action, there will be a cut action, there will be a copy action. So how does this work? When we build the module, so I'm building the module now, these annotations that you see here are turned into, magically, by building this module, by doing that, these annotations are turned into entries inside this XML file. You can see here our MIME type, text XRK, and in here, registered for our text XRK editor that we are now creating, we can see we can see here a list of actions. So the loaders folder is what is displayed when you right click on a particular file. All of these XML files, so here is one XML file, each module can provide one of these, and all of these different XML files are merged into a file system. And again, about this topic, You can read the documentation. There's a lot of information about what a file system is and how the NetBeans file system works. So again, the developer FAQ, and you'll see a lot of information about the file system here. Here is how modules install things. So there is, in the same way as a Windows system, for example, has a file system, so your NetBeans platform application also has a file system. And the way things are installed into the file system of your application is by merging this XML file, one of which at most each module has. And here are the contributions from this module into the file system. So for the text XRK, MIME type, there is a multi-view. So a multi-view is a component like this, has been registered, and consists of, at the moment, an editor document, and it also consists of a visual element. So here is the visual element, you can see it here, org xrk file support visual element. So this is one of the tabs, and the other tab is provided by the NetBeans platform itself, which has its own editor document that is provided here. And you can also provide additional ones. So initially this looks complicated, but in the end this is very convenient because it lets you extend the application, because someone else could create another module that also registers a multi-view component in this text XRK folder, and then automatically a new tab will be available for your file. So it will not be generated layer XML, it will be something .xrk, and each of these tabs will then be available and can be contributed externally. So the same is true for Lotus Text XRK. If anyone wants to create new actions that are available when you right click on your file type, like I'm doing here, they would register their actions inside the same folder, inside their layer file, inside their module. Okay, so let's see the result of all of this. We run this, and here you can see the icon, small icon. So run it, application starts up, and we go to our folder. So here is, now you can see our icon is recognized. And I can open this file. You can see here there's a source and there's a visual. So here you go. We've got the starting point already. So in addition to a visual tab, we might also want a whole new window over here displaying some information about our data. So I'll close the application, and we'll say we'll create another module. You could create everything in the same module, but that's not really modular. So we say XRK Advanced Analyzer. So this module will only be available for your advanced users, and they might have to pay license fees for this or something like that. So this isn't one of the core modules you'll provide with the application. So we say org.xrk Advanced Analyzer Advanced, click Finish, and here we're going to provide a new window. So here is a new window, and it will be in the properties position. So again, you can read the documentation about this. There's a whole section on the Windows system. Here's the Windows system. Windows system, modes, top components. So our top component is a JPanel, for example, and this is a top component. Let's first go back. This is a top component, this is a top component, this is a top component, but you can see that these three top components are in the same position. So this position is called the Explorer position, and because these three are in the same position, automatically tabs are created. So this is how tabs are created. And you can see here these three are also in the same position. This is called the editor position, and there's another position over here, the properties position. So what we're doing now is creating another window in the properties position, which means that there will be tabs here. So quickly create that. A new window in the properties position. It should open when the application starts. Click Next. XRK Advanced Analysis, let's call it. Well, let's just call it Advanced Analysis. Finish. We could have an icon that's displayed in the tab. Finish, and now you look in the source, and again you can see these annotations. So in the same way as I showed before, if we build this module, what happens is, and the building is done automatically when you run, when you go inside the module, you'll see the generated layer XML, and among other things there is a folder here called Windows, inside of which is registered the top component that we've created. Look, it's registered inside the properties mode, so in the properties position. There's also an action for opening this top component. So in the same way as you can open projects window, files window, favorites window, there'll automatically be an action for opening your advanced analyzer. You can also see in the annotations that here is specified things like whether or not the top component is open when the application starts. So open startup true, and also you can see here right now the top component will appear in the properties position, in this position. If you want it to be in a different position, you can change it here from properties to editor to explorer, and this documentation describing what those different modes are, and you can also see that inside the code, and we will see this later. So run the application again, and now you can see here we have advanced analysis as well. Let's switch to our back to our data here. Okay, so right now these windows, this advanced analysis isn't showing anything, right? So what we wanted to do is we want this advanced analysis window to be listening for the presence of this particular object. And this is another whole topic that's interesting and very important, and it's discussed in the lookup section. So this is what we're looking at now. There's a whole long topic in here about lookup. So what is lookup? So lookup is a communication mechanism between different modules, so that you can communicate information between different modules without those modules being connected to each other. And if you go back to the NetBeans platform tutorials, you will see that there is a section which is really important and you should do before doing anything else. The NetBeans platform fundamentals, inside which you'll see an important section, selection management series, where you'll learn all about lookup, especially here, but also these other topics. But this is a very important section. So one of the features of the file type support that we have is the fact that we are displaying the underlying file as a node. And let's have a look again at our code. So here we have our data object. The data object is connected to our text XRK MIME type, which, if you remember, was available. This MIME type is available for any file that ends in .xrk, and we can see that here, MIME type text XRK, and the extension must be one of these. So the data object is connected to the underlying file based on this MIME type registration. In addition, what we are seeing, so thanks to this annotation, we're seeing this Mode to View tab. But what we're also seeing is this node. Whenever we select a different node, what is automatically happening is that what is being published into this lookup, which you can imagine as being a bag of objects. So there's you should read the whole lookup section, but the application has a context. So it's a bag of objects that are invisible, that are hidden, into which you can publish objects. And this window can be listening to that bag or to that container for objects. And what is happening right now is whenever we select a different node, the underlying data object is being published into the lookup of this particular window. And because this particular window is selected, that object is published into the context of the whole application and is therefore available to this top component. And we can see that very easily. So we'll do that inside the top component. So here we are in the top component, and we're going to listen to the lookup. implements lookup listener. So we import, and because we implement lookup listener, we need to implement a method called result changed. So here is the result changed method. We cut the result changed method from here, put it a bit higher for convenience. So now we will start our listening process, which is a bit tricky in the beginning. So we start by saying, when the component opens, when the window opens, start listening to the application context for objects. So right now we're not going to say which kind of object, which kind of specific object. Utilities, actions, global context, look up result, and it's going to be an object class. So I just want to show you what objects are available at different points of the depending on what is selected. So what this returns is a lookup result. So we'll put this up here because we need to refer to it. So this is all objects in application context. That's what we have here. And now we start listening, and when the window closes, we want to stop listening so that we don't cause any leaks. Once you start listening, you need to stop listening somewhere too. Okay, so now whenever there is an object in the lookup, automatically the result changed method is going to be fired. So this is going to receive any notifications of objects in the lookup. So we have this all objects. So we get all instances. So we're getting all the objects. I'm going to say for object O. So the JDK6 for loop we're using here. Okay. So we run the application. Application starts up, the window is open automatically, so we should see some results already. Yeah, action map. So here are some. Okay, so let's see again. So now we will go back to our data. Okay, so this window is now listening to the application's lookup for the currently selected object. So here we go, I select this and I see here that okay, well, it's completely clear. Okay, so here you can see some information. There is a node, favorites node, and here you can see the display name of the currently selected node. Okay, so I'll clear it again. I'll select this one with 15 at the end. There you can see it. That one's now selected. So this window is picking up that information without there being any connection between this module, the module providing this window, and the module providing this node structure. So what this means is that this window now has access to the node. You can see here, there is the node. So let's do something with this information. So we won't close this. We'll close this. Okay. So instead of listening for object, we're going to listen for node. And this is a NetBeans platform node class, requiring us to have a dependency on the module that provides that class. So here we can see the nodes API. So now we can use the node class. Here we can see it, org openid nodes node. Node, node. Okay, so now we will get nodes back from there. So let's see, get display name. So let's run the application again. So let's run the application again. And again open the output window. So now we're listening for nodes. So clear this output window again. Go back into our folder. Select this one, 11, right? So there it is. Select that one. There it is. Select that one. There it is. Okay. So this is becoming interesting. So now we can actually access the information from that node. Let's see if you can go further and get down to the data object. So remember, this is the presentation layer. So we're going to go down to the controller layer, data object. So we need to have a new module, the data systems API. So this is for the controller layer. So data object, data object, data object. Okay, so what can we get from the data object? Get primary file. So this is the underlying file. This is how to get from a controller class down to the underlying file. Data object. And this is also something that's been well documented. If you go back to the documentation, you will see, look for converting between common data types and finding things. So converting from a file, a standard Java file, to a NetBeans platform file. So it's a wrapper around Java IO file. How to get from a data object to a file object, from a file object to a data object, from a data object to a node, all described in there. So get primary file, and from there, let's see, get primary file. Oh, we need to have a dependency on the file object. And from there we can say get. So you can see here we can actually parse it as well. So we can get the text, we can get the lines, we can get the bytes inside the file from here. But for the moment we'll just get the path. Okay. So let's run the application another time. And home, data. So here's our data. And you can see here, okay, so I'll clear this. I select a different file, and here is the full path to that file on my disk. I select a different one, and there it is. So I'll clear it. And again, this is information that is generated by the module providing this window over on that side. So 11, 12. Maybe you can see it appear if you make this a bit smaller. 15, 12, 11. Okay. So now that we have the data object, we can get from there into the file. And now we can actually display something. Let's display something. Okay, so close this. Go back in here. And now we're going to display something inside the stop component. So let's drag the text area and display it here. Okay, so we have a text area. Let's change the variable name to result area. So we have a result area. Let's make a string builder. B equals new string builder. So we're going to build up a string here and then put that into the text area. Append data object, get primary file, and get path. And we'll append a line break. Okay, and then we have our result area, which will change to string. Okay, run the application again and show our data again. So now you can see fully qualified path each time. Okay, so maybe more interesting would be to show the actual content. So what we can say is maybe result area append data object, data object, get primary file. So now we're on the down below the controller into the model. So we get this as text. So here's our string, content, equals content. And we need a try catch. And we're good to go. So display our data again. And now look, we can see our content displayed in the advanced analysis window. In the same way, we could create another window just like this that also listens to the lookup for the current data object, and each of these different windows could do something different. One window you could display the pure numbers, as you can see here. In another window you could have different colors, different bars. It depends on how you want to implement those different views. The important thing is to get the different modules communicating with each other in the way that I've described here. I hope this has helped to get you started with creating a data parser and analyzer on the NetBeans platform.